From the moment we take our first breath, we are learning, absorbing sights, sounds, and sensations in a continuous dance of discovery that lasts throughout our lives. But what does it mean to learn? At its core, learning is a change in behavior resulting from prior experience. This change is not temporary. It is, as researchers describe, relatively permanent and shaped by our interactions with the world. Whether we are mastering the steps of a new dance, picking up a foreign language, or simply recalling the route to a friend's house, the processes that support learning are deeply woven into the fabric of our biology, psychology, and social environment. The quest to understand learning has ancient roots. Philosophers like Plato once proposed that learning is the recollection of knowledge already within us, a process of uncovering what is innate. Centuries later, John Locke offered a different view, likening the mind to a blank slate waiting to be inscribed by experience. These early ideas paved the way for more formal scientific investigations in the 1800s as the study of learning branched into psychology, neuroscience, and education. Over time, scholars and scientists have developed a variety of frameworks, learning theories, to explain how we acquire, process, and retain new knowledge. 5 theories, in particular, are widely accepted today: behavioral, cognitive, constructivist, social, and experiential learning theories. Each offers a unique perspective, emphasizing different aspects of the learning process. Behaviorism, for example, focuses on observable actions. Its pioneers, such as Watson and Skinner, argued that behaviors are shaped by reinforcement and punishment rewards for correct actions and consequences for mistakes. In this view, the internal workings of the mind are less important than the behaviors we can observe and measure. The strength of behaviorism lies in its focus on outcomes and the power of practice and feedback. However, it says little about the unseen mental processes that guide learning. Cognitive theories, which gained prominence in the 1950s, shifted attention to the mind's internal processes. Here, learning is understood as a set of mental activities: thinking, memory, problem-solving, and attention. This perspective recognizes that learners actively construct meaning, drawing on prior knowledge and applying strategies to organize and retain information. Techniques like spaced repetition and retrieval practice, where information is revisited at intervals and recalled from memory, have strong evidence for enhancing retention and mastery. Constructivist theories build on this idea, suggesting that learners construct new knowledge atop what they already know. Social learning theories, meanwhile, highlight the importance of observation and imitation, showing how we acquire skills by watching others. Experiential learning emphasizes the role of direct experience and reflection, encouraging us to connect new information with what we already understand. The science of how we learn is not just theoretical, it is grounded in the biology of the brain. Modern neuroscience reveals that learning involves neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. When we encounter meaningful experiences, our brains respond by strengthening or weakening the connections between neurons, a process known as synaptic plasticity. Only experiences deemed useful or relevant by the brain result in changes to these neural pathways, highlighting the importance of motivation and engagement in learning. This story of the brain is not entirely uniform. Recent research has found that even within the same neuron, different synapses can follow different rules during learning. This complexity underpins the versatility of our minds, enabling us to acquire both facts and skills with remarkable adaptability. When we learn, our sensory cortex, the area of the brain that processes input from the world, changes in response to significant experiences, literally reshaping itself to accommodate new knowledge. Central to learning is working memory, our ability to hold and manipulate information in mind over short periods. Working memory draws on multiple cognitive processes and is supported by persistent elevated activity in the brain's neural circuits. It acts as a mental workspace where we juggle ideas, rehearse facts, and make sense of new information. This capacity is crucial for developing skills in areas such as literacy and numeracy, especially in young children. Memory itself is not a single entity. Cognitive science distinguishes between declarative memory, our storehouse of facts and events, knowing what, and non-declarative memory, which encompasses skills, habits, and conditioning, knowing how. Learning-induced changes in brain structure and function support both types. The famous case of patient HM, who lost the ability to form new memories after brain surgery, dramatically illustrated the role of specific brain regions in memory formation and learning. What, then, are the ingredients of effective learning? Research consistently points to several key factors: prior knowledge, how information is organized, motivation, and the development of mastery through practice and feedback. Learning is not a passive process. It is driven by active engagement building on what we already know, paying attention, and using deliberate strategies to organize and recall information. Techniques such as spaced practice, retrieval practice, and breaking complex skills into manageable parts have strong empirical support. Motivation is a powerful force in launching and sustaining learning. Learners who set clear goals, track their progress, and celebrate small victories are better equipped to persist through challenges. Feedback is also essential. Not only does it correct mistakes, but it provides vital information about what to improve next. Studies show that goal setting combined with structured feedback is more effective for learning than goal setting alone. This is especially true for complex skill development, where feedback on both performance and results guides learners toward mastery. Skill acquisition, the process of developing voluntary control over movements or mental processes to achieve a goal, follows a pattern observed across a wide range of domains. One influential model, proposed by Fitz and Posner, describes 3 stages. First is the cognitive stage, where learners figure out what needs to be done and frequently make errors. Next comes the associative stage, where practice and feedback help refine performance. Finally, in the autonomous stage, skills become automatic, requiring less conscious thought and freeing up mental resources for higher-level tasks. This progression is not limited to physical skills, it extends to cognitive and social abilities as well. In clinical settings, for example, skill acquisition protocols often involve instruction, modeling, individualized pacing, rehearsal, and frequent feedback. Breaking complex tasks into smaller steps, a process known as task analysis, and using visual supports can make learning more manageable and effective. Deliberate practice is another cornerstone of skill development. Unlike rote repetition, deliberate practice involves focused, goal-directed activities designed to improve specific aspects of performance, coupled with immediate feedback. This approach is increasingly used in fields ranging from psychotherapy to healthcare and education, where structured feedback and targeted rehearsal lead to measurable improvements in skill and competency. Evidence suggests that even in highly complex domains, such as clinical empathy or psychotherapeutic technique, deliberate practice can accelerate progress. Despite these insights, learning is rarely a smooth or linear journey. Plateaus, periods when progress seems to stall despite continued effort, are common. Understanding the cognitive basis of these plateaus can help learners push through. Breaking down skills into smaller components, identifying knowledge gaps, and seeking targeted feedback are proven strategies for overcoming these sticking points. Reducing repetition from trial to trial, rather than practicing the same task in exactly the same way, can also enhance skill acquisition by challenging the brain to adapt. Barriers to learning take many forms. They might arise from personal circumstances such as lack of time, motivation, or support, or from broader social factors like poverty, discrimination, or distance. Even within structured training environments, challenges such as uncertainty, slow progress, and fear of failure can sap motivation. Emotional states play a significant role. Periods of lowered motivation, like the mid-semester slump, are a familiar experience for many learners. Research highlights the importance of managing emotions and cultivating persistence, the trait of pursuing goals despite setbacks. Strategies such as goal setting, focus, and pacing help learners regulate their motivation and sustain effort over the long term. Mindset is another crucial psychological ingredient. Carol Dweck's concept of the growth mindset, the belief that intelligence and abilities can be developed, has been shown to foster resilience, passion, and achievement. Students with a growth mindset cope better with setbacks, display greater motivation, and ultimately experience higher academic performance. Grit, a blend of passion and perseverance, is similarly linked to long-term success, well-being, and satisfaction. Cultivating these attitudes can make the difference between giving up at the first hurdle and persisting until mastery is achieved. The brain's capacity for neuroplasticity supports not just the acquisition of new skills, but also the ongoing process of lifelong learning. Continuous practice and the formation of daily learning habits help keep neural pathways strong and adaptable. Micro-learning, breaking information into small, manageable blocks, can prevent cognitive overload and improve retention, especially when applied alongside evidence-based strategies like spaced repetition and active recall. These techniques are supported by cognitive science as effective ways to learn how to learn, a process known as meta-learning. The importance of continuous skill acquisition has never been clearer. As the world changes at an unprecedented pace, with estimates suggesting that half of all jobs will require new skill sets by 2027, the ability to learn and relearn has become essential for personal and professional growth. Lifelong learning encompasses formal, non-formal, and informal education, benefiting not just career progression but also mental and physical health. Cultivating curiosity, setting clear goals, seeking feedback, and celebrating progress are all part of this ongoing journey. Ultimately, learning is both a science and an art, a complex interplay of biology, psychology, and environment. While much has been discovered about how we acquire and retain new skills, there remain gaps in our understanding. For example, researchers continue to seek standardized measures for skill acquisition across different domains, and more work is needed to develop common frameworks and interventions. Yet, the principles uncovered so far offer a powerful foundation for anyone seeking to grow, adapt, and thrive. By embracing evidence-based strategies, nurturing motivation and mindset, and committing to lifelong learning, we harness the full potential of our remarkable brains and open the door to endless possibilities. Imagine standing at the threshold of a new skill, perhaps learning to play the piano, mastering a new language, or acquiring the technical intricacies of coding. The journey from unfamiliarity to competence can seem daunting, but decades of research have illuminated pathways that make skill development not only possible, but also efficient and rewarding. While the foundations of learning provide a critical backdrop, the real magic lies in the strategies we use as we progress from novice to expert. Today, let us explore these evidence-based approaches, drawing from the best of what modern science has uncovered about how people truly improve at what they do. At the heart of skill development is a simple truth: mastery is not achieved in a single leap, but through a gradual layering of abilities. To become proficient, learners must first acquire the basic building blocks, the component skills, before practicing how to integrate them and knowing when to use them. This sequence is essential. For example, a medical student must first learn how to hold a scalpel, then practice making incisions under supervision, and eventually discern which technique to use in real surgical scenarios. Progress is fostered by goal-directed practice, where every session has a purpose, and by targeted feedback, which helps the learner recognize what works and what needs adjustment. Recent evidence highlights the value of cognitive learning strategies in this process. Active learning, for instance, encourages engagement with the material rather than passive absorption. Instead of merely watching a demonstration or reading about a concept, the learner participates, asking questions, testing hypotheses, or solving problems. Spaced practice, another powerful technique, involves spreading learning sessions over time rather than cramming. This method leverages the brain's natural forgetting curve, prompting the retrieval of information just as it begins to fade, which strengthens memory. Retrieval practice. The act of recalling information from memory further cements knowledge, while consciously linking new material to what one already knows creates a scaffold that supports deeper understanding and application. But learning is not purely a cognitive endeavor. It is shaped by behavioral and neurological dynamics that govern how we adapt to new challenges. Skill acquisition is teleonomic, meaning it is guided by goals and involves continual self-correction as the learner encounters obstacles or plateaus. The brain and body adapt together, making small adjustments in response to each attempt. This process is dynamic, reflecting the ever-changing demands of the task and the learner's growing capabilities. Practical protocols for skill development harness these dynamics through a blend of instruction, modeling, individualized pacing, active responding, rehearsal, and frequent specific feedback. Imagine someone learning to drive. The instructor provides clear directions, demonstrates maneuvers, adjusts the pace to suit the learner's comfort, prompts active participation, and offers immediate feedback after each attempt. Technology can further enhance this approach. Computer-based instruction has shown particular promise for complex or technical skills, allowing learners to practice in simulated environments that mirror real-world scenarios. In therapeutic and educational settings, structured approaches break the learning journey into manageable phases. One such method, used in applied behavior analysis, divides skill development into cognitive, associative, and autonomous stages. In the cognitive stage, the learner first understands what needs to be done. The associative stage is marked by practice and corrective feedback, helping to iron out errors. Finally, in the autonomous stage, the skill becomes second nature, performed with little conscious thought. Breaking down complex tasks into discrete steps. A method known as task analysis helps learners tackle one challenge at a time. Visual supports, such as diagrams or checklists, can further scaffold progress, especially for those who benefit from seeing the process laid out in concrete terms. The structure of skill teaching has also been refined through models such as Peyton's 4-step approach, George's 5-step method, and Sawyer's 6-step framework. Though the details vary, these frameworks share core features. Learners observe the skill being performed, see it deconstructed into its essential parts, work to understand each component, and gradually assume more responsibility as they become proficient. This graduated approach not only clarifies what to do, but also why each step matters, building both competence and confidence. Of course, learning does not end when the lesson is over. Research emphasizes the importance of reinforcing skills outside structured sessions to ensure transfer and long-term retention. Strategies here include modeling, where learners watch others perform the skill in real-world contexts, role-playing, where they rehearse scenarios in a safe environment, modifying the environment to prompt the desired behavior, and collaborating with others who can provide support and accountability. The more a skill is woven into daily life, the more likely it is to endure. Practice itself, however, is not mindless repetition of the same motion or idea. Evidence from sport expertise suggests that varied practice, changing the context, the order, or the difficulty, leads to greater adaptability and deeper learning. Progressive challenge, where the task becomes incrementally harder, keeps learners in the optimal zone of development. Tasks are neither so easy as to be boring, nor so difficult as to be discouraging. Feedback, both during and after practice, sharpens self-awareness and guides improvement. Coaches and teachers often distinguish between knowledge of performance, how the action was carried out, and knowledge of results, what the outcome was, both of which are crucial for refining technique. Goal setting, when paired with feedback, forms a potent combination for skill growth. Setting clear, attainable goals helps learners focus their efforts and measure progress. Feedback on these goals, whether from a teacher, a peer, or self-assessment, not only highlights areas for improvement, but also enhances the learner's ability to monitor their own performance. This is especially true for children and adults with strong working memory, who benefit from seeing how their actions align with their objectives. A person's orientation toward goals and feedback can make a difference too. Those who value feedback and are motivated by clear targets are more likely to turn these strategies into meaningful gains. Within academic environments, goal setting is a cornerstone of self-regulated learning. Although the methods for implementing goal setting vary widely, the underlying principle is consistent. When learners take an active role in directing their efforts and tracking their achievements, they become more autonomous, resilient, and successful. Notably, studies show that feedback amplifies the effect of goal setting. Learners who receive both achieve better outcomes than those who set goals alone, but strategies and structures are only part of the equation. The engine that drives persistence through setbacks and plateaus is motivation, shaped in large part by mindset. A growth mindset, as Carol Dweck and others have defined it, is the belief that intelligence can be developed. Interventions that foster this mindset by emphasizing that skills can be developed rather than being fixed traits have been shown to boost academic performance and well-being. Learners with a growth mindset display greater motivation, passion, and grit, persisting even when progress is slow or challenges seem insurmountable. It is not just the presence of grit, the blend of passion and perseverance, but the underlying belief that effort leads to improvement that fuels sustained engagement. These psychological factors are not merely abstract concepts, they have practical implications. For learners who struggle with self-doubt or fear of failure, cultivating a growth mindset can transform setbacks from threats into opportunities for learning. Achievement motivation and grit act as mediators, channeling the energy of belief into concrete action. People who view challenges as opportunities are more likely to embrace difficult tasks, seek feedback, and remain committed over the long haul. Motivation and self-regulation, then, are indispensable companions on the journey to skill mastery. Self-regulation involves setting goals, maintaining focus, pacing oneself, and prioritizing tasks. These strategies help learners manage their own progress, adjust when necessary, and avoid being derailed by distractions or frustration. One subtle but powerful insight from research is that reducing the repetition of the exact same trial during training can actually enhance skill acquisition. Rather than practicing the same passage on the piano over and over without variation, for example, mixing up the order or adding new challenges prevents the mind from slipping into autopilot. This forces the learner to adapt, strengthening both understanding and flexibility. Breaking information into small, manageable blocks, a strategy known as micro-learning, has also been shown to improve retention and prevent cognitive overload. When the brain is not overwhelmed with too much information at once, it can more effectively encode and integrate new knowledge. Cognitive load theory supports this approach, arguing that learning is most effective when mental resources are conserved and deployed where they are most needed. To sustain progress and avoid stagnation, breaking skills down into their smallest components is a valuable tactic. This granular approach helps learners identify specific points of difficulty and target them directly, rather than becoming frustrated by a lack of overall progress. Overcoming learning plateaus often means returning to the basics, isolating weak points, and building back up with deliberate, focused practice. Learning is not a solitary pursuit. Mentorship and collaboration are effective strategies for acquiring new skills. Mentors provide guidance, model best practices, and offer feedback tailored to the learner's needs. Collaboration with peers creates a community of practice where learners can share experiences, troubleshoot challenges, and celebrate progress together. This social dimension not only enriches the learning experience but also supplies motivation and accountability. Soft skills, such as communication, adaptability, and teamwork, are increasingly recognized as vital to effective skill development. While technical proficiency is important, the ability to give and receive feedback, work with others, and remain open to new ideas enhances both individual and collective growth. Finally, the most enduring improvements come not from dramatic bursts of effort, but from consistent daily habits. Embedding practice and reflection into everyday routines transforms skill acquisition from an isolated event into a lifelong process. Like drops of water wearing away stone, small, regular actions accumulate over time, leading to lasting mastery. Throughout this journey, it is important to remember that not all questions are fully settled. While research offers strong guidance on many principles and techniques, the optimal blend of strategies may vary depending on the learner, the domain, and the context. What remains clear, however, is that skill development is within reach for anyone willing to engage purposefully, seek feedback, maintain motivation, and adapt as they go. By understanding and applying these strategies, learners can turn daunting goals into achievable realities, one step at a time. The journey of learning is rarely a straight line. Most who set out to master a new skill soon discover that the path is filled with obstacles, moments of doubt, periods of slow progress, and times when motivation fades. These challenges are not exceptions. They are a universal part of every learner's experience. Understanding what stands in the way and knowing how to move past it is as essential as any method or technique for acquiring knowledge. For many, the most immediate barrier is time. The demands of daily life, work, family, and other responsibilities can crowd out the hours needed for focused practice or study. This sense of scarcity often leads learners to postpone their ambitions, waiting for a better time that rarely arrives. Research shows that effective time management is crucial for overcoming this hurdle. By carving out small, regular intervals for learning, even amid busy schedules, progress becomes both possible and sustainable. It is not about finding large blocks of free time, but about making consistent, intentional choices. Just as important is cultivating a support system. Whether it is encouragement from peers, guidance from mentors, or simply someone to share goals with, support acts as both a buffer against setbacks and a source of renewed energy. Motivation can also be elusive. It often surges at the beginning of a new endeavor, only to fade as novelty gives way to the reality of effort and incremental gains. This dip in motivation is common, especially at the midpoint of a project or semester. Scholars who have studied these slumps note that understanding why motivation dips is the first step to counteracting its effects. Sometimes it is fatigue, sometimes boredom, or a loss of connection to the original purpose. Helpful strategies include revisiting one's goals, seeking out small wins to celebrate, and building in rewards for persistence. Above all, maintaining motivation requires self-awareness, recognizing when energy is low and having a plan to address it. Uncertainty is another frequent companion on the road to skill acquisition. Learners often encounter moments when progress feels invisible, leading to self-doubt and the temptation to quit. This is made worse by unrealistic expectations, assuming that improvement should be swift or that failure is a sign of incapacity. In reality, slow progress is normal. Embracing patience and setting realistic expectations are vital. Failure, rather than being a dead end, signals that something new is being attempted and that growth is underway. Those who view setbacks as a natural, even necessary part of learning are more likely to persist and ultimately succeed. For some, the obstacles to learning are rooted not in personal habits, but in the world around them. External factors such as poverty, lack of funding, discrimination, conflict, disabilities, and even geographic distance can create formidable barriers. These challenges cannot be overcome by individual effort alone. They require systemic solutions and support mechanisms. Programs that provide resources, remove financial obstacles, and foster inclusive environments are essential to leveling the playing field. Without such support, many are denied the opportunity to pursue their aspirations, regardless of their motivation or diligence. Within organizations, additional complexities arise. Determining what skills are needed, Allocating resources for training and sustaining employees' development over time are persistent challenges. Needs assessments and thoughtful resource planning are critical first steps. But sustaining progress demands more ongoing support, opportunities for practice, and frameworks that keep learners engaged and invested. Engagement is not a one-time achievement, but a continuous process, requiring adaptation as circumstances and needs evolve. A particularly stubborn challenge is the learning plateau, a period where, despite continued effort, improvement seems to halt. These plateaus are not a sign of failure but a natural phase in the development of expertise. What often helps is a careful assessment of where progress has stalled. Identifying specific knowledge gaps, seeking targeted feedback, and being willing to push beyond what feels comfortable can reignite growth. Sometimes, the plateau is rooted in cognitive processes, a period when the brain is consolidating what has been learned before it can build further. Using targeted techniques, such as varying the approach or focusing on weak points, can help bypass or shorten these stagnant periods. Emotions play a significant role in whether a learner persists or gives up. Frustration, disappointment, and anxiety can erode the will to continue, especially after setbacks. Managing these emotions is as critical as any practical strategy. This may mean stepping back to reflect, seeking encouragement, or simply allowing time for feelings to pass before returning to the task. The ability to regulate emotions in the face of difficulty, sometimes called emotional resilience, is closely tied to long-term achievement. Underlying all of these strategies is the principle of persistence. Persistence is not blind stubbornness, but a thoughtful commitment to pursuing one's goals despite obstacles. It is linked to resilience, determination, and the capacity to solve problems as they arise. This trait can be cultivated by setting clear, attainable goals, breaking them down into smaller steps, and developing strategies to overcome specific barriers. However, it is important to strike a balance. Persistence, when taken to extremes, can lead to perfectionism or chronic stress. The healthiest form of perseverance is flexible, allowing for reflection and adjustment along the way. Research on motivation and well-being shows that mental and physical health, work-life balance, and anxiety all affect the ability to sustain progress. Neglecting these factors can undermine even the best-laid plans. Attending to one's health, making space for rest, and maintaining social connections are therefore not indulgences, but necessities for effective learning. When setbacks occur, those who are physically and emotionally well are better equipped to recover and resume their efforts. The concept of grit, a blend of passion and perseverance, emerges as a powerful predictor of long-term success. Studies link high levels of grit to better achievement, greater mental health, and increased satisfaction with life. Grit enables learners to weather difficulties, maintain focus over extended periods, and find meaning in the pursuit itself. It is not an inborn trait, but one that can be developed through practice, reflection, and a willingness to engage with challenges rather than avoid them. Central to progress is the recognition that learning is not a finite project, but a lifelong endeavor. Lifelong learning encompasses formal education, non-formal training, and informal experiences that stretch across the entire lifespan. This ongoing process is driven by self-motivation and curiosity, a willingness to seek out new knowledge, adapt to changing circumstances, and improve continuously. Those who cultivate a learning mindset remain open to new ideas, embrace adaptability, and see each stage of life as an opportunity for growth. The brain's remarkable capacity for neuroplasticity underpins this lifelong adaptability. With each new skill or piece of knowledge, the brain rewires itself, strengthening and refining its pathways. This not only supports learning in the moment, but also builds resilience against setbacks. The more one engages in learning, the more flexible and capable the brain becomes, creating a positive feedback loop that supports future efforts. To sustain progress over time, practical habits are essential. Setting clear goals provides direction, while breaking big ambitions into smaller, manageable steps helps prevent overwhelm. Celebrating milestones, no matter how minor, reinforces the sense of progress and keeps motivation alive. These habits are not merely beneficial in the short term. Evidence suggests they support both personal and professional growth across the lifespan. Participation in learning programs can be increased by making them engaging and relevant. Frameworks that foster motivation and demonstrate real-world impact are especially effective. When learners see the connection between their efforts and meaningful outcomes, they are more likely to persist and invest themselves fully. This is true not only for individuals, but also for groups and organizations striving to upskill and remain adaptable in a changing world. Yet, not all interventions have lasting effects. The impact of educational programs can fade over time, depending on the nature of the skill, the environment, and whether ongoing opportunities for practice are provided. Sustaining gains requires attention to context, creating environments that encourage continued use and refinement of new abilities, rather than allowing them to atrophy from neglect. Adaptability is one of the most valuable qualities a lifelong learner can possess. Those who are willing to update their skills, seek feedback, and adjust their approach stay relevant and effective, regardless of how the world changes. 7 distinctive practices have been identified that help employees, and by extension anyone, to remain lifelong learners: adaptability, continuous self-improvement, curiosity, seeking feedback, setting learning goals, reflecting on experiences, and maintaining a growth-oriented mindset. These practices are not limited to the workplace. They serve anyone committed to ongoing growth. Curiosity, in particular, is a powerful engine for self-directed learning. When learners approach the world with genuine interest, they are more likely to seek out new information, ask questions, and remain engaged even when progress is slow. Cultivating curiosity is less about waiting for inspiration and more about actively looking for connections and opportunities to learn in everyday life. Emotions, again, are not just obstacles but also sources of energy. Positive emotions, such as excitement, pride, and satisfaction, can boost persistence and help sustain effort. Recognizing and harnessing these feelings can turn learning from a chore into a source of meaning. Skill, ultimately, is not a static achievement but an evolving capability. As circumstances change and new challenges arise, the ability to keep learning, to adapt, and to overcome obstacles becomes its own form of expertise. The journey is not without hardship, but it is this very process of overcoming challenges, sustaining momentum, and developing habits of mind that transforms learners not just in their abilities but in their character. The path of learning is open-ended. There will always be new hurdles, plateaus, and moments of doubt, but with the right strategies, managing time, seeking support, embracing failure, cultivating persistence, and tending to well-being, learners can not only overcome obstacles but emerge stronger and more capable than before. In this way, the process of learning and skill acquisition becomes a lifelong companion, shaping not just what we know, but who we are.